Hey guys. Okay, so let's get into this demo about shading fundamentals. And the first thing we're going to do is put together some swatches of different tones. Here's what I mean by that. What we're up to creating today is something that looks like this. We have 5 different tones. Okay. First up here is white. We don't, that's just the paper. We don't shade anything in there. Next up is light gray, medium gray, dark gray, and it goes all the way to black over here. Important note here. We're labeling this as black, but in actuality, it's not jet black, and we're not looking to get a jet black either. If you're working with a regular #2 pencil, we're going to use specific techniques of building the tone to be as reasonably dark as we can get it without starting to destroy the paper. Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to walk you through how to make one of these value scales for yourself. First thing you want to do is create 2 parallel lines that are about an inch or an inch and a half away from each other. Okay, so in a previous lesson we learned how to do freehand straight lines. You want to use this edge of your paper as a guide for to inform the angle of the line you're drawing. Okay, mine's a little bit crooked, but that's all right. The thing about these lines is that they want to be parallel to each other, and they want to be very, very light, because eventually we don't want to be, we only want to see the tone inside of them, and these edges, we want to make them disappear. So these are the 2 parallel lines you got. All right. Close off the left edge, and then start making some squares for yourself. Again, draw very lightly. We want 5 squares. So that's square number 1. Move over an equal distance, square number 2, 3, 4, and then 5. If you space your lines apart about an inch and a half away from each other, you should get those 5 squares to almost fill the width of the paper like this. Okay. We're going to start with the bottommost box. That's our darkest value, right? Labeled as black. So here's what you want to do. The mechanics of shading, the most important part is the grip on your pencil. You want it as long as possible. Okay, this is so that you're forcing yourself to use as little pressure as possible. And we're not going to go immediately dark. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to layer in the values. So initially, I'm just going to go in this up and down direction using light pressure and slowly making my way to fill up this square with an even tone of gray. Okay, so my pencil grip is long. That also makes it so that I'm shading with the side, the belly of my lead. That's what we want to be doing. If you hold your pencil like this, you're going to be using the tip of your pencil. We don't want that. Okay, long grip. Now I fill this in the up and down direction. I'm going to tilt my paper so that the next pass is at a diagonal. What this will do, guys, is make it so that the values that you render in, they'll be very, very smooth the more times you go over it with a different direction, with a different stroke direction. Some of the streakiness is going to go away, and you get something pretty smooth. One thing you might want to watch out for, you might see it in the video, there's a tiny dot there. That's picking up some of the eraser dust that was on the paper on the table. So you want to make sure your table's nice and smooth. That's 2 passes. We can go way darker. I did the first pass up and down, second pass diagonally. I'm going to turn it again. So I'm going side to side, or from this view it's side to side, but Since it's easier for my hand to go up and down, that's why I'm turning my paper this way. But again, we're going at a different stroke direction than the previous layer. Keep that long grip. You're preventing yourself from applying excess pressure. And keep your lines as tight as possible within the square. If you have, you're going to have little bits of overshooting, and that's okay. We're going to clean up those edges later. What you don't want to be doing is like this, okay? Don't be don't be going buck wild like that. Keep it controlled. We're not using a lot of energy here, okay? Slowly building the value one layer at a time. I'm going to turn my paper once again. Okay, this is my fourth layer now. Okay, I'm going diagonally, but in the opposite direction of the last diagonal layer. Okay, so this is 45 degrees, but in the other direction. Goal here is to make a smooth, even tone. Getting as dark as we can with this type of lead. What I mean by that is, okay, by the way, this is my fifth layer now. And I'm back in my original direction actually, okay, of vertical up and down strokes. And here, once there's enough of a base, I can choose to press a little bit harder than I was before, but that's not where we want to start off with in order to create even tones, okay? If you have a base of several layers down already and it's nice and smooth, then you got more freedom to use a little more pressure to darken this up. And that's what we want to see in terms of the darkest value you can get with this number 2 pencil. Now, in your supply package, you should also have picked up a 2B pencil, okay? That means essentially that it's a much softer lead than this number 2. The number 2 pencils have a lead quality that's HB. It's somewhere medium, okay? 2B is way softer, means it'll go darker way easier with less pressure. So, okay, what I did just there was I used my eraser to clean up these edges. Okay, we want to clean up all 4 edges before moving on to the following square right here. I'm going to go back in here to sort of clean up this edge a little bit, darken it up to even it out with the rest of the square. That's our black, okay, our quote-unquote black. We're not looking for jet black again. Same technique for the other squares, okay, but now you're going to be mindful that I want this square to be visibly lighter than the one I just shaded in. Make sure all the eraser dust is off of there so you don't get streaking. So I'm using a little less pressure, and I'm probably going to go for 3 to 4 passes as opposed to the 5 to 6 that I did for the black tone, all right? But I'm keeping my stroke direction consistent to start with. It's just up and down. Okay, you can go back and forth to pick up some of the even out some of the uneven points. So that's my first layer. I want it to be a little darker than that, so I'm tilting my paper, going at a diagonal, okay? It's important to be mindful of how much pressure you're applying. Light is where you want to be at, okay? Because it's easier to layer in multiple light layers than to try and resolve and smooth out only several really dark layers, okay? There's more opportunity to smooth things out. So now it's my third layer, and I'm turning my paper again to have a different stroke direction. Okay, so that was my third layer. I'm going to go for my fourth. I'm going to tilt my paper so it's in the diagonal direction. But it's the diagonal opposite to the first diagonal layer we put down. And the more layers you got, the more opportunity you have to smooth this thing out. Get a nice even tone. I've got some blotches here and there. I can use my eraser just to press on it lightly. I'm not rubbing it, okay? I'm just pressing on these spots here and there to lighten it up a bit. And I can go back in there with my pencil to smooth it out a bit. Okay, now what you might find is what I'm finding here is that, yes, there's a difference, but I want it to be a little more obvious. What you might need to do is add just one more pass, one more layer on top of your black with a fair amount of pressure to darken it in overall. You might find that necessary for yourself to provide just a little more pop and contrast between these two squares. So I'm pretty happy with that. Again, I'm going to clean up my edges. There's only 3 of them to clean up here. And then rinse and repeat the same process. Important thing here though is as we move on to the medium, right, the medium gray, you want to lighten up even more. Okay, you want to lighten up your pressure even more. So the first layer I put down wants to be just almost a whisper of a tone of gray. I want to get at least two layers down here, so I want to be working very, very lightly. If you have a pretty heavy hand naturally, you might want to switch to the magic wand grip right here. It's the same kind of long grip, but you're really not allowing yourself at all to put pressure on the pencil, and you're just letting the literal weight of the pencil itself do the work for you. Okay, the way you grip this is between the thumb and the index finger, and you rest it lightly on your middle finger. Okay, so that's my first layer. Okay, it's going in the side to side motion. I'm going to tilt my paper and get a diagonal layer down, and this time I am using that extra light pencil grip, almost like a magic wand. Wingardium Leviosa. And I'm getting some streaking over here. I'm going to lighten that up just a little, okay, by just pressing my eraser down on it. And maybe, you know what? Yeah, I just want one more pass. I just did a diagonal layer this way. I'm going to turn my paper and do a diagonal layer in the other direction, super, super lightly. I'm not even looking to darken this in much. I just want to smooth out the tone a little bit more than what it was like before. When you start off with this, and if this is the first time for you shading, you might get some streaking here and there. That's okay. Just do the best you can. The more you practice this, the more smoother tone you're going to find yourself able to make. So I'm happy with this medium gray. I'm going to clean up the edges with my eraser. All right. Now's the last box we're going to shade in. This is light gray. Probably one of the most important tones to be able to draw. It can be a little tricky though, because of how light you need your pressure. You absolutely want to be holding your pencil like a magic wand this time, okay, with this extra light grip, pinched between your thumb and index, resting very lightly on your middle finger, okay? You're gripping the very back tip of your pencil. This tone, see, I'm already going a little too dark, so I'm going to start over. This light gray tone that's barely darker than the highlights and the main like lit portions, it's really important to be able to render that, because as we're going to learn later on, there's something called Lambertian fall off when it comes to the way natural objects or objects in nature react to light. Okay, most of what we see is in this range of very, very light midtones. Now I'm going to hold this up a little close. It's difficult to achieve smoothness here because I'm only going for one pass, and because of that, this kind of darkness over here, I want to adjust that. I'm going to get my larger eraser and just press over that portion lightly. Okay, it's not a perfect process. I got to adjust the pressure with which I'm laying down this eraser too. But if you can get a tone that's extra light, right, as smooth as you can in just one pass like that, that's a pretty good result. And we can go ahead and clean up the edges. And then we also want to erase the bounding box around the white box, okay, because it's just white. So this is the reason why I wanted you guys to lay down the construction lines as lightly as we can, because this is what we want to end up with. Boxes of these different swatches of tone right next to each other that are easily different. You can easily differentiate them with your eye. Okay, so let's go ahead and label these 5 value points we got. Number 1 up here, that's white. 2, light gray. 3, medium gray. 4, dark gray. 5th, black. We're starting with this 5-point scale for tone. There's many others. Obviously, when we get to working with gradients, you're going to see how you can get pretty much an infinite amount of transitional tones between each of these steps. But this is a good place to start with for beginner artists, okay, or for people who are just learning how to shade. If you can get these 5 variations in tonal value, you're in good shape there. So good luck with this. Remember the mechanics: long grip either this way or this way for extra light. You're shading with the belly of your pencil lead, not the tip, and you're varying your stroke directions and doing these tones in multiple passes. Okay, so good luck, guys.